Previously on db100, Yamcha suffered an embarrassing loss at the World Martial Arts Preliminaries, while Krillin and Goku suffered deadly losses on the battlefield facing Raditz. The humans learned 2 more powerful Saiyans would arrive in approximately a year, and made plans to revive Goku and Krillin. Piccolo attempted to forcefully reabsorb Kami to prevent Goku's friends from reviving his sworn enemy, and gain enough power to rule the Earth and repel the Saiyans himself. Kami resorted to necromancy and possessed the dead body of Raditz, resisting Piccolo's pull to merge their separate bodies into one. Roshi departed to tell Chi-Chi the news of her husband's passing, and left Tien with his latest pupil, Gohan. Baba escorted Goku and Krillin to Otherworld and saw them off for their million-mile journey down Snake Way, but Goku fell off the path and left Krillin to reach King Kai's alone, contemplating the past ways Goku saved all of them and how he's let him down. And now we'll answer today's question: what if Garlic Jr. was canon in Dragon Ball Z? Krillin clenches and adjusts to the altered gravity, similar to how he weaned himself to move inside the hyperbolic time chamber. Just as the monk manages to make it back to his feet, a blue deity in sunglasses steps out of the small domicile, sending Krillin back to the dirt in a deep, deferential bow. King Kai was even higher up the ladder of deities than King Yama, and if his temper was anything to go by, this King Kai character would likely demand even more respect. Not deigning to make eye contact with the Kai, Krillin introduces himself and explains why he's here. He fully discloses that his planet's god Kami was originally only planning on sending Goku, but the wise and generous King Yama allowed him to make the journey as well. Honestly, he's not sure what he's hoping to gain, sticking his nose in the business of the galaxy's Kai. He understands if King Kai was expecting a real warrior like Goku, and understands if he thinks this is all some kind of joke. Krillin looks up, and his nervousness and noselessness leave the Kai snorting with laughter. Turns out, King Kai likes jokes. Krillin is going to be a star pupil of his. He advises the new student to unclench. Time moves differently in Otherworld. His friend Goku may be lost, but there's still plenty of time for him to find his way back, just as there's still much Krillin can do to prepare and grow for the Saiyan invasion, and plenty of time for his allies back on Earth to make plans and take actions of their own. Having passed his first test with flying colors by making King Kai laugh, Krillin begins his formal training chasing bubbles. Baba rematerializes on the earthly plane. Her palace is a sight for sore eyes. Between rolling up her sleeves to battle Raditz, then immediately escorting their casualties to the check-in station, the weary witch can't wait to pamper herself, alone and in silence. Baba floats into her compound, dims the lights in her hot spring warmed by the Devil's Toilet, Belphegor's bathhouse, and cranks some relaxing tunes. Before the 500-year-old magician can fully recover from the lightly battered frying Goku's brother gave her, yet another explosion sounds from outside the walls. She tries to ignore it until the palace itself begins to rumble. She begrudgingly rises out of her bathwater to investigate as Bandages the Mummy bursts in, getting a full view of Baba's sagging, naked body. The old woman squeals and covers herself while Bandages averts his eyes. Baba shouts that he doesn't even like bats. What's he doing in here? The Mummy explains that a cloud of dark mist fell from the sky, and now everyone's acting nuts. Baba uses her telepathy to read the minds of the people rampaging around her palace. The fortune teller admits she didn't see this one coming through her crystal ball, but she still predicted it. She knew there'd be consequences for Kami mucking around inside that corpse, blurring the lines between Earth and Otherworld. She tells Bandages to look at her, but the Mummy refuses, scarred by what he's already seen of the saggy sorceress. Baba insists she's decent. It's not about that. And the embalmed Emperor turns to see she's clothed. She affixes her hat and makes eye contact with the Mummy. Baba hypnotizes Bandages preemptively, giving him a simple command: keep her alive and keep his wits about him, even if he's exposed to that mist. It won't work for anybody already infected, but it should keep her key people from turning. In the meanwhile, the Mummy uses his wraps to cover his nose and mouth, sparing himself from breathing in the sinister, corrupting fog. She commands the Mummy to locate his fellow fighters and use his bandages to prevent them from inhaling the mind-altering gas. He wraps Fangs in a modified version of his stranglehold attack, shielding the vampire's face. Spike the Devil Man is high above and using his Devil Might beam to stop the advance of rabid foes from all sides. The Earthlings had gone mad, consumed with malice and rage. He tells the Mummy he'll be fine. Focus on See-Through and Baba. Bandages asks where he is, before Spike uses his senses to search the area for See-Through. There, he tells the Mummy, before using his beam to explode an attacking human in a cloud of blood and guts. The remains of the man splatter, revealing their invisible ally. Still sane, plus now showered in viscera. He yelps when Bandages yanks him to safety. The others escape, but a mass of mist-infected miscreants overwhelm Spike, dragging the Devil Man to an underwater doom. Piccolo comes to, upside down in the sand. A muffled thud stirs him, and he pulls himself free, finding he's still in the desert near a human settlement. Despite the calm dusk hour and cool breeze, the village folk are rampaging and running wild like there's a fire. Boom! A missile drops from the sky, obliterating a dwelling. No, when the dust clears, he sees the missile get to its feet. It's a tall brown-skinned man. He has a turban, glowing eyes, and fangs. He sinks his teeth into the survivors of his impact. Rather than succumbing, the bite victims go insane, shortly growling alongside the first man themselves. The demonic villagers run at Piccolo, while the Turban Man leaps to the sky, no doubt preparing for another dive bomb. The transformed villagers leap toward Piccolo, one sinking their teeth in his neck. He dispatches the pair in one hit. When a whistling alerts him to Nam's re-entry on top of him, the Demon King stretches out his hand and vaporizes the feral fighter. His ears pick up a conversation in the night air, and he flies towards the voices. "Did you really have to send the entire population spiraling?" complains Nikki as he claws globs of pink merry-go-round gum from his white stalks of hair. Considering that all of this chaos resulted in a plane crash and one of the Dragon Balls literally falling into their lap from the skies, his master remains pleased with how things have progressed. Behind the minuscule master, Ginger and Sancho vivisect the beastly hide of one of Giran's winged species. Out of the entrails spills their 7th Dragon Ball. At last, my father's dream for this world will be realized, and Kami's precious Dragon Balls will be the very instrument of my revenge. Kami and those Earthlings would suffer for what they did to his father. While they're busy snuffing out fires or each other, they won't be busy stopping him. Piccolo spots the group in the distance and approaches them. He wonders if this is his son. Had his progeny hatched while he was knocked out and already carried out his worldly conquest? From what he's overheard, this group's leader does harbor some vendetta against Kami, and he's aware of the Dragon Balls. The light of Shenron bursting forth from the orbs reveals a spotted, light blue imp with an evil grin. Shenron offers his magical wish, and Piccolo cries out, hoping to stop this interloper from gaining whatever it was he wanted to wish for. But before Piccolo can even get 2 words out, Sancho and Ginger attack, muzzling Piccolo's words. Garlic Jr. successfully wishes for immortality. Feeling magnanimous, he has his men spare Piccolo. This cape-wearing half of a soul was supposedly everything Kami sought to rid himself of. Hypocrite. Without the power Kami lost in sacrificing this one, the Nameless One and the Old Guardian would never have stood a chance against him. If they kill Piccolo here and now, Kami won't live long enough to return and find Garlic Jr. sitting on his throne. And he won't have that. Bulma learns from Por that Yamcha is at the Tournament Grounds Island. Evidently, things went poorly, and he'd wanted to be alone. No such luxuries with the Saiyan invasion a short year away. As her craft gets closer, she sees smoke in the distance rising from the island. Were they under attack? Bulma dips the plane lower, trying to get a closer look, and perhaps spot Yamcha. She cruises across the island, surveying the numerous fires. Other than the people themselves going mad and attacking whatever noise or shiny object goes by, she can't spot any enemy or reason for this mayhem. Bulma wonders if that cloud of fog she flew through earlier is some kind of toxin that's driving the people exposed into frenzies of rage. She was already plenty mad at Yamcha without needing to be all hopped up on this weird gas. The scientist dons a protective suit and gas mask before taking the plane low over the tournament grounds. She spots the tiled ring and abandoned stands, and her face turns as blue as her hair. Yamcha. He's in some kind of glowing state with fangs and a crazy aura. He was tearing through the other rampaging fighters present with apathetic abandon. No. He was reveling in it. The ordinary fighter stood no chance against the viscerally violent wolf-fang turtle student. Yamcha's yellow eyes narrow to slits when he sights the hovering ship and the girl above. He launches a spirit ball at the plane, blowing it apart. But thankfully, Bulma bails and uses her capsule motorcycle to speed off, evading her pursuing paramour, who bounds after her, practically on all fours. Bulma dodges and weaves other feral fight fans, who pop out of the arena wreckage, looking to attack anything they hear or see. Based on the bloody and mangled state of some of these people, nothing seemed to slow them down. This wasn't just aggression. These islanders were downright demonic. She actually spots a number of bullet holes in Yamcha, yelping when he closes the gap and yanks the protective bodysuit from her back. Bulma wriggles the rest of the ruined suit off and bucks it back onto Yamcha. Hopefully that'll keep him busy long enough for her to find a cure to all this. Bulma turns sharply, putting more distance between her and her boyfriend. Not that distance was a new thing in their rocky relationship's most recent years. Normally, she'd be flattered if Yamcha pursued her so relentlessly. But this chase was leaving her the wrong kind of breathless. She weaves around a wide crowd of violent island visitors, hoping to lose Yamcha. She shrieks, seeing him shred the slew of spectators in a blood-soaked blitz. Bulma's bike hits an upturned cart in the middle of the road and fishtails. The demonic desert bandit wants to give chase, but a compulsion alerts him to the fresh meat. Man-wolf, the sometimes wolf, sometimes man that Jackie Chun returned to human form, was hiding under the cart that Bulma sideswiped. This was her chance. The intrepid inventor steers into a controlled crash, leaping free at the last minute and tumbling out of sight. Yamcha and the others will be attracted to the big loud explosion, while she can lay low. Somehow Man-Wolf survived the massacre, and appeals to Yamcha in full sentences, trying to walk away without inciting a fight. Bulma guesses being a werewolf already made him immune to that mist stuff. Yamcha doesn't fight, and Man-Wolf relaxes. But then, Yamcha lunges and bites. The wolfed-out man falls to the ground, eyes glazed over. Bulma sits stock still and triggers an alarm on her crash bike. Yamcha takes the bait, running in the opposite direction, towards the smoking, chirping heap. Bulma ventures out when the coast is clear, but a new noise keeps her rooted on the spot. Yamcha's bite didn't wound the wary werewolf, it made him wild just like the rest. Huge, hairy, and hulked out thanks to whatever that bite transmitted. The beast's senses are also buffed to 11. She sees it sniff her torn-up hazmat suit, then stalk toward her direction. She glances around for a weapon, cover, anything. Then she spots her solution. No choice. No choice. No choice. Bulma steals her nerves for probably the hardest part of her day yet, even after Raditz, Goku dying, and now Yamcha trying to kill her. This was worse. She holds her breath and hides away from the wolf. The beastly fighter walks right by her, sniffing around within mere meters of Bulma. But before the girl is exposed, he promptly turns tail and stalks off to hunt elsewhere. But is he truly gone? Silence. No movement. Finally, Bulma uses both arms, heaving the heavy mass keeping her hidden aside. Was surviving really worth this? She kicks and flails, clamoring free from her dark hiding spot. Bulma coughs to the point of near vomiting as she shoots a dirty look at the even dirtier and disgusting Bacterian. Or at least the corpse of Bacterian. But it had done the job. The rabid werewolf didn't smell anything beside Bacterian's decomposing hide when passing by as Bulma burrowed into the grossest nooks and crannies. She sniffs herself in the fresh air and cries. She should have stayed dead the first time she died on this island. A gruff voice tells her to keep it down with the crying. She'll attract the others who breathed in that mist stuff. At least now it finally seems to have thinned out. Bulma yelps. Two gas-masked figures snatch her and pull her into the tournament arena's hospital area and unmask. The tournament announcer and blonde lunch. Turns out the announcer was with Bacterian and the other judges, and just so happened to be wearing a gas mask when that mist rolled through and all hell broke loose. The poor loser was just trying to appeal his loss to Mark in the finals. But now, he probably owes the foul-smelling fighter his life. Even sweet Blue Launch turned violent. Luckily, she'd sneezed eventually. Blonde Launch remained still and sane long enough for the announcer to wrangle a spare mask over her face. If she sneezes now, though, her blue-haired self is nutso. So, word to the wise. Tien scowls at the fat swordsman floating alongside him. They were almost at Korin's place, yet Yajirobe, who's not missing a hand like the Triclops he sliced apart, squirms in midair, uncomfortable being at the mercy of Chiaotzu's power. The pale fighter still looked to be in some kind of trance, but it wasn't malicious. The tiny telekinetic hadn't dropped them when the sky went dark while they were flying over the ocean, so he probably wasn't going to drop them with just a few more feet to fly before they reached their destination. Yajirobe hollers for Korin to have a Senzu Bean ready as they levitate closer. The trio of Tien, Yajirobe, and Gohan spill over the railing of Korin's tower and on to the circular floor, as does a lot of Tien's blood. No sign of Korin, though Yajirobe notices the tower's been disturbed since he last saw it. Pots and basins askew and upturned. He can't locate any Senzu Beans for Tien in this mess. But Tien's not preoccupied with his injury, and instead seems more focused on watching Chiaotzu. Once the levitating little fighter's feet touch the floor, he falls limp and unconscious. Just like his friend resisted death's pull when he was slain by Tambourine, Chiaotzu had fought off the madness of whatever had clouded his mind on the beach just long enough to rescue Tien. The crane fighter silently prays for his loyal partner's recovery. Gohan starts tossing aside items, hoping to locate these magic beans Yajirobe claims will heal his new companion, but Tien shushes them. He hears voices coming from above. Gohan asks to be carried. The unarmed assassin awkwardly allows it, and the trio reach the edge of Kami's lookout. Tien peers over with his third eye, while Yajirobe positions his blade like a mirror for a full view of who's around and what they're up to. Tien isn't surprised to find Piccolo at the center of this mess, though he doesn't recognize the other small, pointy-eared creature with him, lounging on Kami's throne, getting to know Piccolo. Tien notes that his old enemy looks battered and uneasy. Almost on cue, Piccolo transfigures a fresh cape and turban onto his frame. He admits to Garlic Jr. that while it's not exactly how he intended to keep Shenron from reviving Goku, the newcomer's wish for immortality is all but guaranteed Goku won't make it back before those other Saiyans invade. Between this immortal reincarnation of Kami's old rival and the evil alien Saiyans, at times Piccolo wonders why he doesn't just abandon the Earth. It's becoming too much trouble to subjugate these stupid humans, what with them being constantly, incessantly imperiled. Garlic Jr. bursts into a brimming laugh. He loves Piccolo's candor, the ferocity, the yearning. The immortal sees much of the nameless Namekian in this reincarnated daimyo, back when his old rival was honest enough to express the ambition he harbored in his heart, back when his dreams for how to best preside over the Earth weren't so different from his father, Garlic Sr. Piccolo even sports the Demon Clan crest. Garlic Jr. informs Piccolo he's grateful. None of this would have been possible without him. Technically, Kami messed up first, nearly killing them both by trying to reach the check-in station. Honestly, what kind of geriatric guardian keels over from the exhaustion of someone else fighting his battles for him? Long overdue, hilarious to watch, but not enough to set Garlic free. It was only when Piccolo panicked, pouncing on his other half in a rushed attempt at reunification, that Kami really proved just how worthy he's been of the title of so-called God all these years, by resorting to the dark art of necromancy just to buy himself those precious seconds to recover. Kami's weak and reckless possession of Raditz's corpse broke the dark crystal seal on the Dead Zone, where Garlic Jr.'s father was imprisoned. Plus, if Piccolo succeeded in rejoining his godly counterpart, there would have been no Dragon Balls for his immortality once Garlic Jr. was out. From there, it was a simple matter of dispatching Kami's house pet and using the cat's other mystical portals to summon his Spice Boys. Yajirobe simmers at how easily this group apparently took out Korin. Gohan asks aloud how they're supposed to get his dad back now, without a wish from Shinhan. Piccolo's ears perk up at the child's voice, which tips Garlic Jr. off to their presence. Garlic allows Kami's better half to handle him, as a loyalty test. Piccolo obliges. The two leap into action, but Gohan is still shaky as he flies. The boy evades Piccolo's attacks accidentally when his flight fails him. Gohan feebly skids to a halt in front of the immortal demon instead. Garlic Jr. kicks the boy over to his remaining henchmen, who promptly beat him back and forth like a hacky sack. Yajirobe slips off the lookout's edge and tumbles back to Korin's level. Tien and Piccolo clash. Unlike Goku, who was busy starting and then abandoning a family, these two have never stopped training since the last tournament. Piccolo's original avatar, the Demon King, had killed Chiaotzu, and whether it's been senior or junior, Goku's been the only one to put any of the Piccolos in their place. Tien was itching for an opportunity, and the Green Demon joining the rest of Garlic Jr.'s Demon Clansmen was all the excuse the Crane Fighter needed. Dodonpas crash against the explosive waves Piccolo unleashes. Stretching green limbs are batted away by multiple muscular arms erupting from Tien's back, some still missing hands. The two test their talents at the multiform technique. Tien's 4 clones grapple against the Turban Fighters trio. The clone combatants fan out. Garlic admires this newly cloned third ring to his circus, but grows bored as the battle drags on. Despite trying to tear each other apart, neither opponent has taken a chunk out of the other yet. The two cunning warriors employ the same ruse on the observing imp. One copy of Piccolo's, who's been charging a special beam cannon against his forehead, and another copy of Tien, who has been building up a tri-beam blast, turn their fire on Garlic Jr. Namekian is taken by surprise, but his immortal body quickly regrows or reappears, the charred and missing chunks of flesh the twin sneak attacks had blown away. The leader steps off his throne and takes careful time to beat down Tien and each of his duplicates. He'll deal with Piccolo when Kami arrives, his betrayal being the least surprising part of Garlic's day. Meanwhile, Gohan's rage snaps in the midst of his beating. He unleashes a wave of energy which wounds Ginger and reduces Sancho to dust. Piccolo gets an up-close look at the boy's massive power. For a brief moment, his energy spiked higher than any of theirs, beyond even their immortal foe. The child's remarkable strength fades away just as quickly as it surfaces, and he's left vulnerable to the retaliatory reckoning. Surprisingly, Piccolo steps in to stop Nikki from ending Goku's son, but all this rescue amounts to is punting the boy aside and freeing up a line of attack on the henchman for himself. Ginger and Garlic intervene. The young boy yeets by Yajirobe, who's still clinging to the edge of the tiles. The fat man grabs Gohan by the tail, and the two tumble downward, crashing through the roof of Korin's quarters. Up above, Garlic backhands the Crane Fighter's final clone out of the sky. Gohan levitates off his feet shakily before launching after Tien. Feeling more certain with every second, the Saiyan hybrid hooks into a tight dive and saves the Triclops. Getting his sky legs, Gohan shakily ascends, leaving his flight instructor with Yajirobe to heal. Using his ki to levitate and carry Tien takes a bit out of the boy, and he bobs in the air for a moment, catching his breath. Yajirobe encourages the kid to lay low, stay here with him, but Gohan can't stop there. Piccolo's outnumbered, and if he dies, then there's no Dragon Balls to wish his dad back. With the minimal mastery he has over levitating like this, the kid digs deep for more energy and wills himself upwards. He spots Piccolo's predicament just in time. Gohan gets deja vu of his own hacky-sacking. The remaining henchmen, Ginger and Nikki, gang up on the Green Man. Whenever Piccolo gets some distance from the pair of brutes, the observing Garlic Jr. heads Piccolo off and knocks him back into the fray. Gohan tries to tap into whatever strength he summoned a few minutes ago, but all he can muster is a baby blast that daintily detonates against the henchmen's hides. All eyes immediately turn to him. Yikes. While Gohan's attack doesn't do any damage, it distracts Ginger long enough for Piccolo to wrap an extended arm around Ginger's neck and snap his spine. Nikki rushes to Gohan and holds a sword to the boy's throat, hoping he'll stave off Piccolo if he has a hostage. But a green hand on his shoulder lets him know he's still not safe. The haughty henchman rolls his eyes, anticipating another Piccolo clone behind him. How predictable. This duplicate must be a copy of a copy, though. So dull and wrinkly. Oh, Kami's back. The Guardian powers up in a flash, a purifying light, and Nikki is obliterated. His sword falls at the Guardian's feet, where Gohan rests unscathed. Garlic doesn't mourn the loss of his crew. Quite the opposite. He's delighted to see Kami still has enough spring in his step to smite someone. With both halves of the nameless Namekian now present, he could properly exact his revenge for their betrayal. Though it's been lifetimes for all involved, the imp can't resist asking Kami if all these centuries have been worth it. The humans haven't grown an iota during his stewardship over the earth, despite all of Kami's grand, gracious works as guardian. First, he provided the Earthlings with a common enemy to unite against in King Piccolo. Next, he wisely turned his back on humanity as his own shadow self plunged the planet into darkness. Garlic Jr. thought his banishment to the Dead Zone was bad, but at least he knew there was no hope of escape in that endless void. He admits he's a little jealous of Kami's method for torturing these humans. It's inspired. As guardian, he compels the illusion of hope in his subjects only to leave them high and dry every time. Exquisite. Garlic Jr. commends Kami for fostering so much despair in the hearts of his populace, and through nothing but neglect. Screaming into the void only to receive no answer certainly did wonders for building his character in the Dead Zone. No wonder his Blackwater mist was corrupting them all so easily. Kami launches onto Garlic Jr. with a speed and ferocity that surprises even Piccolo. The Guardian runs his would-be usurper cleanly through with a scythe of ki he channels through his staff. The blue-green spotted imp rends apart in an explosion of blood and guts. Piccolo and Gohan know how durable Garlic Jr. is by now, and the pair leap in, pummeling what appears to only be a pulpy mess to Kami. At first, the Guardian thinks it's overkill, but when he sees Garlic Jr.'s jaw begin regenerating enough to taunt him, he joins Piccolo in blasting and beating back the wiggling remains. Garlic Jr. recalls that when Piccolo and Kami were one, the Nameless One always had an enormous edge in battle power. He certainly wasn't answering prayers all day and night, so what excuse does Kami have for remaining such a stale combatant after 300 years? Had the old-timer really not learned a single new trick in all that time? How boring. That's it. Kami has, in fact, mastered one new technique since assuming the mantle of Guardian, and conveniently enough, it's an especially effective tool against enemies one can't exactly just kill. He uses his magic materialization to summon a heavy stone-lidded pot, and emblazons the symbols for sealing magic on the side. Piccolo gasps. Kami's trying the evil containment wave on an opponent like this? Even if the god were successful, the life force necessary to execute the technique could kill them both. Nonetheless, Kami leaps back, entrusting Piccolo and young Gohan to restrain his regenerating rival. Piccolo suddenly senses a surge of power from Garlic Jr. and shouts for Kami to hold his attack, but his better half unleashes the Mafuba, just as Jr. reforms, transformed. Hulking, and now dark green, the more powerful form of Garlic Jr. may very well stand up to Kami's Mafuba. Kami presses his luck. Ageless, mortal, weak or strong, with the amount of evil in Garlic's heart, the wave would stop him. The towering immortal returns to full power, chuckling at Kami's confidence. Kami and Piccolo's nameless predecessor may have been the stronger fighter, but Garlic always had more mastery over magic. He really thinks he can vex him? He invites whatever the deity can dish out. Kami's so-called signature sealing spell, the Mafuba, rips off rudimentary teachings they both learned from the previous Guardian of Earth. Garlic Jr. shakes off Gohan and Piccolo, reverses the wave, and accelerates its arc right back at Kami. Kami drops to the floor, spent from the taxing technique. Piccolo's stamina also drops like a stone. Garlic Jr. traps the Guardian in a glass jar he materializes around his neck. He's not so cruel as to banish a foe to a dark void. Now Kami will have a front row seat to Garlic's reign. With Piccolo down, Gohan quivers, battered and all alone. Down at Korin's level, Yajirobe splashes water onto his face from one of the basins. He drinks to calm his dry throat and uses a cloth to clean and dress some of the various bumps and bruises he sustained between dodging Chiaotzu's crazy attack and smashing through the roof while saving that punk kid. A gruff voice sarcastically apologizes for Yajirobe's ordeal, claiming no one else in the world has it worse than the fat man right now. Life's a real pain that way. It's Korin. Reflected in the surface of the basin of the water is the white cat. So that's where they'd trapped him when Garlic Jr. made his escape. The samurai clumsily hides his tears of relief and redoubles his efforts to rouse Tien. He shouts at him, kicks him, and even slaps Tien across the face with his own severed hand, taunting the Triclops to awaken, with the accompanying, "Stop hitting yourself. Stop hitting yourself." Garlic Jr. beat him into a blackout 4 times over. Dude is more dead than asleep at this point. Yajirobe finally gets a response after practically waterboarding the conked-out crane fighter with a bucket. Tien sputters and coughs, but instead of waking up, his eyes remain closed, and the man begins writhing in pain. Korin has Yajirobe show him that liquid he just tried to splash Tien awake with, and the two realize the assassin has been dredged in and dosed with the ultra-poisonous to most, ultra-divine water. Tien had tried to drink the magical liquid years before, seeking the strength to stop the evil King Piccolo, and it nearly killed him. Chiaotzu was able to pull him out before he succumbed to the water's poison properties, and Tien steered clear of the stuff following Daimao's defeat, deeming the ultra-divine water's promise of power as nothing more than a death sentence. Korin notes that Tien's still breathing. That much of the stuff should have burned him from the inside out. Perhaps Chiaotzu's Jiangxi Pangxi didn't just keep the assassin alive last time, but maybe the psychic also kept his friend from completing the trials. And Tien's never noticed any appreciable increase in power because the assassin's spirit hasn't completed its atonement just yet. Korin hastily walks Yajirobe through mixing up a potion he claims will help them with using the other various jugs and elixirs that are still on the shelves. The fat man froths it together, and when he asks how much to tip down Tien's gullet, gets told the mixture's for him. It'll inoculate him against whatever rabid madness took over Chiaotzu's mind, and may have spread to Yajirobe. Not wanting to become one of those mindless zombies that they flew over on the way here, the swollen swordsman downs the drink in a single sip and lets out a boisterous burp. Ain't nobody making him lose all control of himself, he gloats before looking around and finding himself in a void. It's like he was suddenly standing in a pool of water, which extends endlessly to the horizon. Yajirobe looks up and sees himself staring back at him, but his pudgy face sports Korin's distinct smirk and squint. Yajirobe shouts for the cat to give him back his body, but the cat tells him not to worry his pretty little head. All the scary monsters are out here. There's nothing that can hurt the big baby in there. Gohan's odds look grim, and the boy nearly gives in to the beating before Yajirobe, or rather Korin, arrives to back the kid up. To Gohan's surprise, the wise old cat god of martial arts agrees that they can't win. They're nowhere near strong enough to topple an immortal. Thankfully, they don't need to kill him. They just need to start by freeing Kami. Gohan relaxes a little, as having a specific goal helps the child's mind focus through the frenzy of battle. Grabbing the glass orb around Garlic's neck seems a lot more doable than beating the big bad in his new transformation, the kid admits to the Catman. Korin clashes with the immortal Garlic Jr. in his full-grown glory. Even when expressed through Yajirobe's bloated body, the cat's centuries of skill are quick and cutting enough to keep the immortal on his toes. But without the raw strength to back it up, Korin's attacks still barely break Garlic Jr.'s guard, giving Gohan no opening to grab the captured Kami. When he tries, the boy gets smacked down to the tiles, breaking his nose. A stray shot from Korin and Garlic Jr.'s skirmish skips towards Piccolo's limp, fading body. Korin shouts for Gohan to block it. If Piccolo dies, Kami goes too, and there's no hope of sending Garlic back to his prison dimension, or of Gohan ever getting his dad back. Gohan can barely stand, let alone fight, but somehow summons the strength and speed to hurl himself over Piccolo, giving the Green Man cover with his own body. Gohan splutters the blood from his face and verifies Piccolo is still in one piece. Taking stock of his own injuries after that blast, Gohan supposes he is too. The boy recalls how his mother once reset his Grandpa Ox's nose when the old man fell, and recreates the same movements on himself, snapping his nose back into place and alleviating some of the pain radiating out from his face. The brave boy's swift setting yields some yelps nonetheless. Finding his footing and fixing his face fill Gohan with a renewed inner fire he can't explain, but determined not to let anyone else die, he flies forward to flank the Catman as he pushes his attack on Garlic Jr. Korin smiles as he dodges and weaves. He notes that while Gohan takes more licks than he gives for his part in their little fray, the kid learns quick and he doesn't quit. He reckons with the right trigger and time, presuming they all survive beyond today. Eventually, that hidden power he senses will burst forth, and this kid may put even his father to shame. Too bad they had the rotten luck to be fighting an immortal who won't give them any breathing room. Korin dives on the kid and dodges, pulling them both out of the path of one of Garlic's blasts when a shrill voice rings out in all of their heads. Korin recognizes the telepathic touch of fortune-teller Baba, and bets the old crone has a scheme to even the odds. Baba's just below them at Korin's place. Her fighters, minus Spike, made it here courtesy of a very exhausted Fangs who flapped them all the way here. While the witch is capable of powerful sealing spells on par with Kami's techniques, not even her magic can seal Garlic Jr. as he is now, with his immortal body and monstrous transformation. But if not the demon's physical self, she may be able to seal off a portion, some of his power though. While still piloting Yajirobe's body, throwing punches and sword swipes, Korin lists every magic elixir, legume, and liquid that's on hand at the tower, all while dodging the demon demigod's most vicious strikes. The fortune-teller forages enough of Korin's stores to pull off something useful, but she'll need one more all-important ingredient to make it work, a sizable sample of Garlic Jr.'s immortal blood. The fiber of his being's been fundamentally changed since Shenron made him immortal, and her magical mixture will need to reflect that to do anything useful. Korin kicks the stone pot that Kami summoned earlier toward Gohan, and tells the kid to follow him and not to spill anything. He grips Yajirobe's katana tightly and bounds toward the Demon Clan head's head, calling for Gohan to follow his lead. Just as his blade is about to decapitate Garlic Jr., giving a geyser of blood for Baba's power-sealing ritual, Korin freezes in Yajirobe's body and falls from his fighting stance, disoriented. At Baba's improvised incantation station, Fangs the famished vampire sates himself by glugging a jug of water, before nearly choking and tipping the basin, spitting the foul liquid out. Along with the deluge of dimension-displacing water, Korin washes ashore, back in his own flesh and fur, next to the yet-to-awaken assassin Tien, whose head has lolled into another pot of regular water in all of the commotion. The cat thumps hard on the Triclops' chest 3 times until the unconscious man coughs up the lungfuls of liquid he and Korin have both breathed in. The choking cat shouts for Yajirobe to get his bearings quickly and complete the swipe of the sword. Take Garlic's head off. Korin glares at the vampire for screwing things up. Of all the rotten moments for him and Yajirobe to switch back. Above them, the returned Ronin can't react in time and gets sucker punched by Garlic. Unlike Korin, Yajirobe is more wuss than puss. The struggle against Garlic Jr. devolves into little more than the immortal playing a game of whack-a-mole as Gohan and the Fat Man dodge and dart in panic. But their tactics occupy the transformed terror long enough for Bandages to approach, trying to snag the captured Kami with his raps. Garlic Jr. dodges the mummy, but misses Fangs the vampire, who makes a subtler stab in their skirmish. As a bat, he lands on Garlic Jr.'s back, and unbeknownst to the villain, the vampire gets to work sucking him dry. Before the bat can fly back to Baba to start the sanguine spell, Fangs begins to feel faint, ill even. The little bat falls, crumpled in agony. Garlic. Of course, the vampire realizes. A natural weakness. The fortune teller cries foul. It's a homonym, Nimrod, she seizes, accusing the vampire of being a drama queen. She materializes a large needle and hands it to her left, telling See-Through he's up. The normally non-combative invisible man corrects Baba. He's actually standing to her right. But he's not right for this task, he insists. Unseen or not, he can't touch those guys. They're on another level. Baba hypnotizes the man to not be a coward. See-Through grabs the needle and maneuvers himself near Garlic. He stabs the syringe in, but both he and the syringe are shattered by an instinctual smack from Garlic Jr. Bleeding, and now visibly broken, on the lookout's floor, all can witness his last act of bravery. His needle's gone, but See-Through spots the swollen, stunned shape of Fangs, in his winged form, a few feet from him. He tosses the blood-filled bat toward Baba, who catches it, squeezes the immortal's blood into her bubbling brew. The spell successfully seals a good chunk of the immortal's power, but not enough. Though the fighters are now capable of dealing damage, each time they beat him down, his immortality brings him back. Bandages manages to ensnare the regenerating rogue from head to toe. Garlic Jr. tears free of Bandage's latest barrage of restraints with a roar. Enough of these insects chipping away at him. He was the unkillable one. He would be all that remains. Suddenly, the wraps begin to unfurl off of Garlic and blow away. Not just away, in fact, but up. The wraps also unspool from Bandage's the mummy, seemingly levitating away, exposing the embalmed fighter's rotting and dusty corpse. Roaring, Garlic Jr. summons the dead zone, and Bandages, now exposed to the elements, dies in a burst haze of dust. A massive portal opens in the sky above them and claims the scattered remains of the unwrapped mummy as its first victim. Garlic Jr. gets to his feet, rejuvenated by the assurance that his victory is at hand. He's the only one left in this century who even remembers how to control the dead zone. Without a proper guardian, they're all doomed. The tiles from the lookout and anything else not nailed down, including an exhausted Fangs and injured See-Through, lift off and disappear into the void. In the realm of darkness, the dimension where the ultra-divine water transports those souls sturdy enough to not succumb to its poisonous properties, a bruised, tired, and breathless Tien Shinhan gives up on offering his opponent any further apologies, and falls to his knees. He submits to the shadowy figure that's been pursuing him for hours. The assassin had been spared the worst of the water's trial during King Piccolo's attack, thanks to Chiaotzu's psychic powers pulling him out of this place. Ironically, if Tien had simply avoided chasing Goku to confront Piccolo directly at the time, and had instead accompanied Master Roshi, who was scouring towns and locales for Dragon Balls back then, the assassin might have crossed paths with the figure in front of him in real life, and won the forgiveness he's seeking for real, with words alone. But in this place, a ghostly apparition of the man now meets Tien, empowered by the exotic nature of the ultra-divine, and magnifying the Crane prodigy's guilt and regret in darkness's domain. Tien recognizes the figure, a fellow fighter, well, former fighter, who had the misfortune of meeting Tien Shinhan in the ring long ago. Though the Triclops won handily, and the man accepted his defeat with grace, Tien's Crane School cruelty compelled him to break the man's leg, adding a real injury to the defeated man's already wounded pride. The apparition of Tien's victim taunts the three-eyed man, whom he's already assaulted and dominated, in a drawn-out duel that began the moment the Crane assassin entered this place. 2 years, Tien learns. That's how long the man was hobbled, and had to heal before he could even begin his travels home. Tien Shinhan splays himself on the ground. Go ahead, he says, offering up his arms, a leg, any limb, all of his limbs, his life even. His sins are so great that if this is the cost, so be it. Evidently only a soul as pure as Goku's could get through this trial alive. Fine, grunts the man, before brutally breaking both of Tien's arms in different places and stomping on the three-eyed man's unguarded leg until the bone is pulped and bloody. As the apparition completes his carnage and fades away, Tien simply lays on the ground, allowing the pain to overtake him and anticipating the death that Korin warned him would come. But despite the screaming, searing sensations of pain coming from his injuries, death never comes, nor does unconsciousness, as the sun crosses the sky. Tien eventually gets to his feet, or rather his singular good foot, beneath his one unbroken leg, and struggles to put weight on it. Similar to the way his ability to channel ki and shoot energy was nullified during his fight against the apparition of the man he wounded, he finds he also can't fly. With a particularly potent pain, the assassin manages to fell a tree by ramming his shoulder into it, sending shockwaves of agony through his broken arms. But the splintering timber allows him to fashion a crude wooden cane to use as a crutch as Tien slowly makes his way toward Korin Tower, the only landmark he can recognize on this dark earth, and it's far away, on the very distant horizon. Gohan leaps onto Piccolo and holds Kami's life-linked half down, while Yajirobe clings to whatever debris he can grasp. Korin and Baba grab a hold of Tien and Chiaotzu. Just when all hope seems lost, a shadow soars up the tower. A pair of wings burst open in the sky, and there, floating above Garlic Jr., with the evil immortal locked in his sights, is Spike, the Devil Man. He's already dealt with what Garlic's mist has done to the people of Earth, and this vortex attack he's been using is even more dangerous. The haggard Devil Man doesn't hesitate, and charges up his Devil Might beam even as the Dead Zone threatens to pluck him from the skies. The winged rescuer unleashes his ultimate attack, which the immortal being tanks confidently. However, a moment later, his body bulges, and he bursts apart in a flash of light. Destroyed. Korin and the others can't believe it. The Devil Might beam truly destroyed Garlic Jr. Nothing's regenerating. Or rather, any remnants of Garlic Jr. that may be glomming back together go gusting into the void. One small problem. Even with the villain vanquished, the Dead Zone remains. Though the Machian used his magic to summon it here, it's more a force of nature than a technique once it's opened up. And now, it's loose and wild. The winds shift. Instead of just tiles and trees from the lookout, teepees and tree trunks from the surface fly by in chunks, swallowed by the defiant Dead Zone. Korin catches a glint of light in the air and uses his cane to snag the bottle housing Kami. He breaks the bauble and sets the deity free in a secure spot. Garlic Jr. said only the true Guardian would be able to get the void under control. But Kami is sadly stumped. Even though he had a front row seat to Garlic Sr.'s original rebellion, his rival apprentice only ever threatened to use the Dead Zone against the planet. Perhaps even he realized how dangerous the technique was. Instead, he relied on his ancient army of demon clansmen. Korin recalls that day. The demon army scaled the tower, and Korin fought alongside Kami's predecessor and the young apprentice. Though he was quickly overrun, and didn't get a look at whatever magic spells the previous Guardian used that day to vanquish Garlic Sr., Piccolo gets to his feet with a feeling of deja vu. The sinister Slugman scoffs at the deadbeat deity. He could swear it was just yesterday he was nursing a surprise beating, while the Guardian of Earth proved useless. An entire mountain peak and a small village of mist-infected humans bowls past the lookout and into the Dead Zone. It would take the whole Earth if not contained soon. The tiles beneath their feet rumble and rip free, exposing the bowels of the lookout. Kami realizes he hasn't seen Popo since returning to his palace. He assumed the genie had been knocked out or captured by Garlic's group, but with Korin free and everyone regrouping, Kami recalls he dispatched Popo to the pendulum room just before leaving for Otherworld. The Guardian had wanted to use the magical room to study the past and learn about the incoming threat of the Saiyans, though he'd left them all open to an enemy from his past. The Dead Zone only threatens the present reality, and the phantoms of the past had answers. The Guardian summons Popo back, and cautions them all to hold on, most already doing so to resist the skyward sucking of the Dead Zone. Kami's eyes glow, and suddenly, the others feel themselves being pulled down, not up. What's this sensation? What was happening? The skies shift, and they see they haven't been transported very far. They're still on the lookout, but as the palace appeared more than 300 years in the past, it's crawling with Garlic Sr.'s army, and the pendulum produced phantom of original recipe Garlic leading the rebellion. For a moment, there appear to be two Korins in front of them, but as the projection of the past plays out, the old cat of old is booted from the lookout by a deluge of demons, but not before suffering a grievous wound infused with dark magic. The current-day Korin hisses, witnessing his fate befall him. That wound wasn't just a cat scratch. The god of martial arts has got about a century or so of rest and recuperation on his horizon. Korin recalls the years he spent reliant on the native tribesmen of the lands below. Only after they nursed him was he well enough to make the lengthy climb back up his own tower toward the lookout without falling from weakness or exhaustion. His future self ends the stroll down memory lane, Gohan spots the targets of the demon army, an older robed figure, the previous guardian of Earth, and another green figure, who looked like Piccolo. The nameless Namekian stood between Garlic's army and the old god. Garlic Sr. makes an impassioned plea to the Namek. The men with him weren't born demons, they're humans, left desperate and disillusioned by a deity who denies them a way forward. All of the conflict and hunger the two apprentices had witnessed in their time amongst the Earthlings. It was because their predecessor allowed it to exist. The nameless Namekian hesitates, as he too has felt the humans were too unruly to simply observe. Part of being god of the planet meant confronting their violent past and steering the herd. He understands his master's restraint, but shares Garlic's frustrations. Ultimately, though, he won't overthrow the current god of Earth, and continues to oppose his rival apprentice. Betrayed, Garlic sees no point in begging further, and unleashes his army on his fellow apprentice and former master. Piccolo and Gohan brace themselves for a fight, but Kami informs them they're here to learn, not to fight. These phantoms projected by the pendulum room can't actually harm them. Gohan and Yajirobe relax, but a little too much. The projections can't harm them seriously, but the stampede of centuries-forgotten demon clansmen still hurt as they trample through. Kami and Piccolo's former self, the nameless Namekian, and the former guardian acquit themselves surprisingly well. Garlic's army may have strength in numbers, but the nameless one's a powerhouse and prodigious warrior who proves too tough to simply overrun with brute force and faithful subjects. Plus, the planet's guardian was giving him backup. While Piccolo, Yajirobe, and Gohan steer clear, chopping and blasting the occasional demon who deviates in their direction, Master Korin, Oranai Baba, and the current guardian, Kami, keep their eyes glued to the predecessor, certain the long-gone guardian will end his evil apprentice, dazzling them all with a distinct, demon-sealing deity magic that Kami can replicate once they're back in the future. But they're surprised by two developments. Firstly, despite beliefs to the contrary, the pendulum room recreation of Garlic Sr. does call upon his dead zone technique, frustrated by the ease with which the Nameless One neutralizes his wave of warriors. And the second surprise is the Guardians in action. He nearly falls to his knees as the dead zone stretches out above their heads. The predecessor can create magical boundaries around this dead zone, slow its spread in this dimension, but the old overseer of Earth confesses that he can't do anything to stop the void's current pull, or to seal it before it claims more of the planet. The predecessor guardian proves just as clueless as the present-day Kami, at least where the dead zone was concerned. These changes don't make any sense. Not even Korin and Baba, who were alive for real during the era this pendulum room is reenacting in front of them, can recall any void like the dead zone threatening the Earth of old. The elderly ethereal predecessor rushes to grab a hold of his nameless apprentice's nape before he himself is raptured from the ground, like the Earth and everything else Garlic's gargantuan gamble vores away. While the Guardian's giving it his all just to hold on, the pull of the dead zone is little more than a tug against the towering Namekian, who reaches into his deep well of battle power to remain rooted on the spot. The apprentice is absolute and absorbed in the struggle against Garlic Sr. and his rabid ranks, employing every talent at his disposal to turn the tides. The god's gifted green student shouts and summons copies of his physical body to counter the horde. Powerful beams of light erupt from his hands, eyes, and even his mouth, while he namelessly, silently, strings a telekinetic lasso across the length of the advancing front of demons and flings them away with his mind. His master quells him, though. This struggle will not be won as a physical one alone. Cease your aggressive attacks. Neither his apprentice's raw angst nor his own gifts as guardian can help. The magics his evil apprentice Garlic had employed were too tinged in darkness for a distinguished deity to even dabble in countering them. The very purity that qualified him to be Kami kept him from being able to influence any of the infectious evils looming over their heads and hurting their world. The Nameless One's heart was heavy and turbulent, however, just like the chaotic, disparate energies at play in this wound between worlds that Mackie and Malcontent made. The former guardian suddenly sees his folly. The very flaws he'd hoped to strip from his apprentice might be their salvation. Another wave of demon clansmen breaches the lookout's edge, fully understanding that his next act will forever rob him of becoming the guardian his master believes him capable of being. The amnesiac apprentice reaches for the rage that's built over his entire inequitable existence. Armageddon, abandonment, aggression, apathy. And then at last, his apprenticeship. The original Namekian apprentice's power is enormous. If he weren't watching it up close, Korin wouldn't believe it. Even stacked together, Kami's power and Piccolo's strength was minuscule compared to this genuine article. The cat reckoned superpowers like Raditz and the Saiyans would turn and run at the mere hint of this kind of strength. Streaks of pure white and deep sparking red bleed from the bulging body of Namek's lost son as fiercer fangs and evil eyes invert his sagely visage. The rumbling stops. He did not fit in among the world of men because his place was above them, Piccolo and Gohan feel the waves of Garlic's army lessen against their efforts. The perilous pull of the portal seemingly swaps polarity, and the demon clansmen, rather than any Earthlings, are suddenly caught in its pull and cast away. Earth's Guardian expends the last of his strength in one forceful push, ensuring Garlic Sr. is swallowed as well, and his wound stricken from their now sun-setting skies. With his sealing magic, he creates a magical energy barrier around the shrinking dead zone and condenses the once deadly portal into a dark magic crystal. The day is won, but at great cost. In proving himself to be the worthiest one of all, his avenging apprentice was ceasing to be one at all. Intimately confronting all of his most negative impulses and his hate-filled history proves soul-shattering for the Nameless Namekian, just as his master had feared. The Nameless One grabs his head and screams in agony. Kami and Piccolo watch transfixed as the Nameless Namekian's body unleashes a violent light show. The lion's share of his ludicrous strength fuels the fracture of two shadow selves that split from the larger green man. When the fission finishes, two new figures remain, Kami and Piccolo Daimao. Terrifying to all the spectating humans who recalled Daimao's domination of the planet, but also now tempered as the duo's presence is diminished in the shadow of the Nameless One's enormous essence, which they've all now experienced. The newly knighted Kami looks at the malicious manifestation. The shadowy scourge of Demon King Piccolo hisses at the dominion of Demigod. He dared to show him disdain? He was the superior being. This Kami could never do what he did. Wield control of that other realm that Garlic opened. Win the day. Save the Earth. Piccolo Jr. recalls this memory as he inherited it from his doppelganger, but sees it now from a fuller perspective. His father's nascent notions weren't wrong. The Nameless Namekian's impressionable entanglements with the humans, consuming their culture and their conflict. In short, all of the vim and vigor that would become Piccolo had allowed the Nameless One to muster magics Kami never could to save the day. Piccolo Jr. watches this smoking form of his father scamper to the lookout's edge. He'd inherited the Demon King's memories, but as this experience was proving, perspective could drastically change the meaning of the same event. Piccolo sees similarities to himself in Daimao's dark visions, but the two were far from identical. Little Gohan looks up at the real-life Piccolo Jr. and glances at the billowy black shape of Daimao, struggling to see how these two were ever the same. Young Kami gets to his feet and stands face to face with Daimao, before the shadow darts off and disappears below the clouds. Piccolo Jr. knew his father would never again rise past those clouds to the height of the lookout in his entire lifetime. He sees now that it wasn't disdain, but sadness and guilt that the freshly christened guardian gave his separated self. Another advantage Piccolo Jr. now had over Daimao, and even the young projection of Kami standing beside him. At least he finally knew the truth. Earth's generations gone guardian really had read his apprentice accurately. Piccolo Daimao wasn't just the refuse of a ritual demanding perfection and purity, nor was the nameless nomad Namekian some confused crucible so easily manipulated by the dark hearts of man. No. His descent into madness and malice was a conscious choice, and Piccolo's presence commemorates a sacrificial act of heroism. For centuries, he'd been lied to. With Garlic Sr. and his demonic fog cleared, and the nameless Namekian's stormy separation having subsided, the group feels they've learned all they can from this pendulum projection of the past. Piccolo prefers to skip the awkwardness and apologies, despite the guilty look on Kami's face. He approaches his lifelink partner and tells him he thinks he saw the ins and outs of the technique they used to seal the dead zone, but to do it again once returned to their lookout in the real-life present. It's probably going to require their combined effort, and Piccolo has doubts the old man can keep up with him. The Guardian seems almost relieved that his other half is all business. Piccolo continuing to insult him as an adversary was honestly easier to navigate than any kind of new understanding their revelations of the past might bring about. Baba warns them all that when Kami drops the illusion of this past the pendulum room is keeping them all in, they'll be immediately transported back into the Dead Zone's path in the present. The two will need to act quickly and in concert. The sights of Kami's younger self, Popo, and the predecessor Guardian warp and stretch until only the real fighters remain in reality. Night has fallen, which is a small mercy, as it means they can't clearly see the terrible state of their actual lookout. Whatever hasn't already been swallowed by the Dead Zone is crawling with mist-infected humans, either crazed climbers or just aimless acolytes pulled up here by the Dead Zone's attraction and now rampaging randomly. Baba casts a crude barrier around Piccolo and Kami as the two halves focus their attention on the Dead Zone and attempt to pull off what their progenitor performed. Piccolo does his best to operate on instinct, while Kami backs him up with whatever magical influence and strength he can offer. Exhausted, Korin, Yajirobe, and Gohan hold off the miscreants while simultaneously holding back. With or without either Garlic to lead them, these poor souls would be stuck like this if they weren't cured soon. Kami shouts for Korin to find the sacred water, a mystical salve from the guardians of old, which should reverse this. With the dead zone's pull waning, and no immortal Garlic Jr., these regular humans are more an inconvenience than a full-on incursion at this point. The cat scampers off to search the lookout for the curative sacred water, leaving the fighting for the kid and Yajirobe. Personally, Piccolo wouldn't mind a world overrun by barbaric, borderline hellish humans, but ribs the Guardian that he knows Kami frowns upon such things. The Earthlings are lucky the Witch Woman already has him stuck in this bubble. He may as well clean up another one of Kami's messes. The Guardian laughs, seeing through Junior's brash boasting. He could tell Piccolo was committed to not just resisting for his own selfish survival, but to giving his all to seal the dead zone and help the planet. Old man Kami falters under the strain once or twice, but Mr. Popo sustains the Green Man. Slowly but surely, the wound in the sky shrinks, and more of their true dimension and skyline returns to view. As the last of the aggressors cease, Gohan gets between Yajirobe and a now cured human man the samurai was scuffling with, courtesy of Korin releasing the sacred water. Gohan learns from Tien there, deflecting the swordsman's blade, without anyone being amputated this time around. Patches of the night sky, light clouds, some stars, the fresh moonlight. The dead zone was in its death throes, but the rogue artifact of the dark arts was fighting back. The sky over the lookout flashes between the red swirl of death and the vibrant black and white of the calm night and a full moon. Gohan gets an eyeful, being both at heavenly heights and from having the glittering satellite bounce back at his retinas in the reflection of Yajirobe's blade. In an instant, the boy transforms into an Ozaru, throwing a monkey wrench and eventually a torn-off temple turret right through the middle of any plans the Earthlings were assembling that might resemble peace. Baba drops her shield for a moment, then runs inside of it before putting the barrier back up around Kami, Piccolo, and now herself. Baba tries hypnosis, and a cured Chiaotzu uses his telekinesis. Yajirobe takes a few swipes at the beast's tail, but much like the Saiyan Raditz, Gohan is formidable, even in his exhausted and battered state. This Great Ape transformation seems to have multiplied his strength tenfold.